In the last video, I built Asgard, the realm of Thor from the Marvel Universe. This time I tackle the home of the sworn enemies of Asgard, known as Jotunheim, or the Dark World, the realm of the infamous Frost Giants. Remember to hit like if you enjoy the video and to subscribe for my future videos, guys. So I begin this build by creating the map using the amazing program World Painter. You can see me creating a snowy mountain range that will surround Jotunheim. I then start the actual build. Here I'm creating an outer wall that protects the one open side of the mountain range. I use some intricate patterned pillars that make up the sides of archways using packed ice and stone bricks. These archways make up the base, and I use a much larger but similar arch atop the wall. This will then space the entire gap of the mountain range. You can see in the large archways above the smaller ones that I scatter random blocks of packed ice. These blocks of ice would form in gaps of the wall by the freezing of water. Now that I have started the wall, I then fill it with a massive ice wall reminiscent of the wall from Game of Thrones. I then break up the ice within this wall to create a real weathered effect. I then focus on the double archway entrance where I can get rid of the inside ice wall. I drop sand all over the wall, which I can then turn into more packed ice, continuing to add a weathered look to the build. So Jotunheim is the home of the Frost Giants in Norse mythology and in the Marvel Universe, where the world is destroyed during the war with the Asgardians. What we see in the movies is just a dark, destroyed world. My aim is to build the Frost Giants realm in all its glory before the war. A theme I really want to get across with Jotunheim is their disregard for maintaining their architecture. Before the war with Asgard, the Frost Giants ruled by Laufey had one goal in mind: the complete domination of the 9 realms. This quest obviously would leave little time for the shallow task of cleaning up their buildings and rubble. Comfort and beauty would mean little to the Jotuns. Now I've begun to focus on the next part: the ice roads into the Jotun Keep and the ice lakes that are positioned to the left and right of where the castle will be built. Using a brush that replaces some of the ice with water, I create a slushy icy surface to the lakes. I then build up different sizes of stone cylinders to create spikes striking out of the lake. I can later use a command to replace the stone with ice. My idea here is the Jotuns created these spikes themselves using magic from the Casket of Winters before the Asgardians stole it away from them. I also break up these spikes a bit to again add a weathered effect. As with all builds, choosing to include these details will not only contribute to the physical look of the build, but also add to the narrative builds put forward. I move to the other side, to the other lake, where I'll build a few more spikes. Spikes a little like these are naturally generated in some biomes, but they're much smaller. These spikes add a menacing, dangerous feeling that fits perfectly with the Frost Giants. I then move on from the ice lakes to build some old walls that once lined the path into the Jotun castle. These walls use a similar pattern to the archways of the outer wall, but this time the wall has crumbled at the sides in disrepair in the classic Frost Giant fashion. To build crumbled walls and ruins, I will break parts of the wall and rebuild the same pattern on the ground, with some blocks having been completely destroyed and others being flung further away during the collapse. Behind these walls, I create the statues of Jotunheim's warriors. I build these using ice again, with the idea that they were created using the magic from the Casket of Winters again. The first statue depicts a warrior holding the magic casket, the second displaying its deadly frosty arm that doubles as a sword, and the third wielding a massive two-handed icy war axe. I find that statues are actually very difficult to build. They take a lot of trial and error. These are the final designs that took a while to be created in a creative flat world, which I then recreated in this world. I have now begun to build some old ruins that make up the Dark World. Again, these details add to my story of the Frost Giants, who, contrary to Asgardians, don't care for majesty and beauty, but prefer domination and death to all beings they deem inferior. I apply the same theory as before here by imagining walls and then building the remnants of them as if only the base and rubble remains. I then sprinkle around more sand that I turn into ice that has been cleared from the path into the castle. Now for the castle. I want this castle to be absolutely epic, the formidable base of all Frost Giant operations and domination. I begin the first tier of this castle by creating its front, 2 massive columns made of stone and blackstone. To connect to the two, I use a series of interesting windows and patterns. To create these interesting shapes, I use stone walls and stairs to add variation to every single design. This variation is one key component to creating engaging builds, changing up patterns and designs to make everything just that little bit more interesting to look at. To the side of the first tier, I create a backdrop of black stone and glass to add some variation and texture. I then apply the same theory, even just below the top of the wall, which could have just been a flat stone surface now has depth, and below that I create more windows, this time adopting a variation to a simple archway design by placing stairs and ways to embellish corners. Below that I add some more block patterns within two of the larger narrow archway designs. I then reuse the front to finish off the side. Don't be afraid to do this in your own builds. If you have created enough variation in your designs, reusing the same design will offer a familiarity and theme to your whole build. Expanding on my first tier, I place a larger section at the back, starting with the black stone and glass wall. To add detail to this larger section, I create massive archways. You can probably see that I was pretty obsessed with archways for the build. I just think they can look truly epic with enough depth and detail. The ancient Roman civilization used so many of them in their architecture, and their buildings still stand today. Apply this theory in your Minecraft builds. When in doubt, build an arch. I promise you, it will never fail you. You can see here that I've finished off the first tier to the castle and moved on to the second, where I reuse the front of the first tier on two sides of the second tier and then connect the two. If you have made it this far into this video, I'd just like to say thank you for watching. It means so much to me. If you have any crazy build ideas or just want to say hi, leave a comment below and I'll make sure to get back to you. Cheers guys. Here I've begun the third tier to the castle. I find it useful to think of big builds in sections. When you design it, you'll find doing this makes a build a lot less overwhelming. I use a series of windows to border the wall. I hope you can see that this build was designed using a bit of Gothic inspiration. I just find that era to share some of that evil foreboding stylings that just scream evil monsters, fitting perfectly into the Frost Giant's home realm. This next section of the third tier I built all the way to the build height limit. This castle is just massive, but it needs to be. They are giants after all. Panning out here, I hope you can see the scale of this build. Also, notice how I've broken up small detailed areas with large areas of exposed blackstone glass. This reduces the chance of a build becoming too confusing to look at and gives it all space to breathe. Just like good music or good painting, Minecraft is an art form, and every space of nothing will emphasize the detail in other areas. Finally, I add some huge icicles that I've attached to the castle, also sprinkling some more sand around, which I will again replace into ice. This blends the build a bit more into their landscape and adds to the weathered theme I've been sure to incorporate into this world. Looking through the ice spikes and statue, as we replace the last blocks to ice, we can see this castle in its entirety. I'm pretty happy with it. So that's about it guys, I truly hope you enjoyed it. And subscribe to stay tuned, I have some great content coming your way.